think we're live. I just got a nice notification. Hi, Bobby.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Okay, I think we are finally live on Facebook. I apologize to everybody. We're running about 15 minutes behind. We've had multiple technical issues, which keeps happening. That's okay. We're here to be patient and roll with it. So, my name is Jasmine Sandler. I am the producer and host of Warrior Women in Business, the podcast, as well as the event series, which Bobby and I are going to talk about today. I am also a keynote speaker on social branding for women. I've been doing it a long time. And I'm really, really thrilled to have Bobby Carlton on today. It's actually a very crucial topic, what we're going to talk about today, from most of my community and definitely Bobby's community of speakers, event producers, event planners. We're going to talk about what you can do to survive in the COVID crisis right now, to get through it, beyond it, and thrive. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Warrior Women in Business, Warrior Women in Business is a brand of JS Media, which is my company, which is a digital marketing and branding agency here in New York City. And what the brand is all about is our mission is to help women in business, primarily female entrepreneurs, get the mentorship that they need in a kind of a community basis, and connect women together to really strengthen their businesses in an authentic way. So this is kind of how Bobby and I actually met. And we've been talking a long time about doing things together. And this is our first initiative together, the podcast. And I'm originally from Boston, so I'm jealous that my friend here, Bobby's in my hometown. But we have been planning together an event, which is, for those of you that know about Warrior Women in Business, every year I run a conference for women called BRANDYOU. So we've been planning this event called a mini BRANDYOU. Now we're on our third try because of this crisis. But the event will be happening. Right now we have it rescheduled for May 25. It may have to be moved out, but we hope not, here in New York City at the People's Improv Theater. So with all that being said, I wanted to just give literally such a short bio on Bobby, because this is going to be a conversation on the topic of helping female speakers and event people thrive and survive in this crisis. So Bobby, thank you so much for, first of all, dealing with the technical difficulties we've had for the last 15 minutes, driving me insane, and being on today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I just want to give a quick bio. So I find that Bobby and I actually have a lot in common. We're like two warrior women. I love it. So Bobby is certainly a leader in helping women. She is the founder of Innovation Women, which is an online speaker bureau for women. She's going to definitely talk more about that. She also runs Innovation Nights, correct?
Yep.
Which is your event series. And she also runs a PR and marketing agency in Boston, and she has clients everywhere. In fact, Bobby was the first person that I talked to when this whole COVID-19 thing unfortunately started happening, because her agency was dealing with a major client in major news. So she's been involved with what's going on from the forefront. So anyway, I'm thrilled you're here. And I guess I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about what led you to your mission and kind of drive and what you're doing now in helping women and primarily female speakers. Talk about that for a minute, if you can.
Sure. So I've worked in high-tech PR for almost 35 years. And during that time frame, part of my job was always to get other people on stage. So I worked inside major enterprise software companies, and I was doing speaker placement really as part of the job that I did every day. And about 12 years ago, the startup that I was working with ran out of money, and all of a sudden I was doing my own thing. So I have the day job, which is Carlton PR marketing. I have the night job, which is Innovation Nights. And then over time, as Innovation Nights was growing, I would get invited to more and more events, and I would sit in the audience and I would look at what I call the all male, all pale, and all stale panels.
I love it.
You know, you end up with these 4 white guys who seem to be always the same 4 white guys on a panel. And I would go, there's got to be something I can do about this. And quickly realized that speaker placement particularly finding female speakers could be a full-time job. So I had to figure out a way to create a platform which would allow event managers and speakers to get together and connect. So thus Innovation Women was born.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I've seen that too as a speaker myself. And I've seen, started kind of the impetus of Warrior Women in Business was that I started to see more and more women coming to my keynotes and more women wanting to be on panels. And I think that, obviously you are a hero in that world. And it's something that's been in dire need. And I think it parallels with the explosion of female entrepreneurship in general. So I'd like you to talk a little bit right now, a little bit more about Innovation Women for just a second. So how long have you been running that, and how have you seen it change in terms of the audience? Like how have those women changed?
Yeah, I started Innovation Women as a crowdfunding project, and I crowdfunded enough money to buy myself a developer, and we launched Innovation Women in 2015. So it's been almost 5 years. We've placed over 1,000 speakers that we know of, and we often don't know when we've placed somebody because the timelines are often pretty extensive. And so somebody will find an Innovation Women speaker, and then, they find them on LinkedIn. And so they invite them. And I'm like,
Right.
we made that initial connection. I want the credit.
I get it. I get it, Bobby.
Yeah. So Innovation Women's been running for, it'll be almost 5 years in May.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
It's not easy work. So let's talk about, what's happening right now, the world in a crisis. This morning I went outside with my mask, glasses, a hat, rubbing alcohol, Lysol. It's just crazy for everybody. But I'm like literally, so right now I'm in the crux of it. I'm staying right now about 1,500 feet from Elmhurst Hospital. I had to leave my house because there might be someone sick there. It's crazy right now. And we're all trying to stay sane. And I think, this online communication is helping us. But man, a lot of speakers are reaching out to me because I work with speakers as clients and event people, and like, hey, what are you doing that we could do? So talk a little bit about, with the world in a crisis, how can speakers and event planners keep moving forward?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the same thing. We're seeing a lot of our speakers going, I've been canceled, I've been postponed, it's going to go virtual. So there's a lot of different things that event managers are doing. Some have just been outright shutting down and sending people home, and that's the end of it. A lot of event managers as well are saying, okay, I'm going to shift things out a little bit, and then a little bit, and then a little bit. Yeah. And then there's another group that's like, all right, we're just going to look at the fall, because there's nothing going on in my fall. I don't know about you.
No, no, nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
It's only the busiest conference season, period.
Yeah. Yep. Well, now it's going to be twice as busy because everything that's happened in March and April is moving to September and October. But we're also seeing a lot of people who are going virtual. So there are lots of folks that are saying, all right, I'm going to take the panel that you were going to be moderating. I'm going to take the conference and I'm going to put it on Zoom. We're seeing the rise of a number of different platforms. I looked at Hey Summit. I've looked at Remo. Introvoke is doing a bunch of stuff. So, there's a bunch of new platforms coming along, and I think everybody's becoming an expert in Zoom these days.
It's true.
Yeah. And we're an Office 365 shop. And so Microsoft Teams is another platform. I heard that they added a Slack's worth of users. So in other words, the number of people who have joined Microsoft in 1 month equal all of the people who use Slack.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. That is crazy numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just going to quickly add, Facebook at work is something I covered way back when as a LinkedIn writer. Yeah. And now it's a bad time in the world, but I'm seeing that is becoming more used, and that people weren't even using it. So yeah, it's you have to kind of see what's out there in terms of the tools. Was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of tools?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great options for tools, but I think it really does come down to, we have this great batch of speakers, And the speakers are usually people who are used to performing, they have great content, and they are prime to be going virtual. So if you are practiced as a speaker, if you have great content, if you have great stuff to share, you're ready to go. It's just a different tool, a different stage.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So as someone that does social branding, and I usually walk my clients through, in fact, I have a client right now, Tuxie Luxie. I'm gonna give her a shout out because it's for those of you that are pet lovers. So it's a luxury pet clothing brand. Anyway, the long and the short of it is we're going for some secondary funding, and I said to her, let's do a video because we can't go in there and do the pitch.
Right.
We have to create a video. And she's like, well, how do we do that? And I'm so used to working with people that you have to get used to creating bits of content for social media. This is what we've been doing forever. Yeah. So for speakers, I think it's just something that they need to think about. Like when you're out there and you're giving a keynote, how is that so much different talking in front of the camera? What pieces of content can you use to make yourself shine as a speaker? It's like those little signature pieces, right? Yeah. So I really, really agree with you. So let's flip the switch a little bit in terms of talking more about event producers, event planners, because I know we're both on both sides, and event planners, event producers, conference planners, they're losing a boatload of money. Yeah. Right now. I mean, I actually think that they're more in dire straits because that is their livelihood. Most of the speakers I deal with, I'm a speaker, it might represent 30 to 40% of our revenues, whereas these other folks, it's 100%. So talk about like, what can event planners, just some tips, event planners, event producers, conference planners. You mentioned some are just, bless you, that's okay, shelving them, some are moving them out. Any tips for those folks? Because I think they're the ones that are the most worried right now.
Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot of event planners and also the support staff. So everything from hotels and airports and such, they're running. I don't even know how some of them are running right now, but they're laying people off. They're sending people home. Sure. When kind of the first COVID-19 crisis started to hit the US, I was talking to somebody who was at an event in, I think it was Las Vegas, and she was saying that while she was going through the hotel lobby, an event organizer was having a team meeting in the lobby and basically laying off the entire team. And I was like, oh,
ouch,
ouch.
right?
Yeah. But I think the people who can are going virtual, either that or they are moving things out to the fall. There's the virtual or the delay. There is literally not a single event that I have seen that is actually happening anywhere right now.
Yeah. It's also something that I think it's just for me, I think it might be a positive way to look at this for people in events, because I deal with a lot of them, both in my professional life and in my personal life as a musician. So I'm dealing with event people everywhere in my life right now. And what I found on both sides, on the professional and the personal side, is a lot of them are now looking into their other kind of maybe even soft skills and how they can utilize those skills in other businesses. You know what I mean? If you think about an event producer or event planner, or even some of the support people, they have inherent skills that can work in other capacities, right? And I think opportunities right now for freelancers is just crazy right now. So my recommendation for people in events is kind of look at other skills that you might be able to utilize for other businesses, to pick up projects here and there. Like you said, people coming up and putting together virtual events right there, creating content, editing content, doing graphic design. It's a lot of work and people need help.
Yeah. So I think you're seeing a lot of the marketing staff, they're good communicators. They have excellent video skills. These are all things that they can be doing, while they're at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as, it's a little, I wanted to get back in touch with you about what happened when we first connected with COVID, so do you mind sharing that story a little bit with our audience in terms of how you got roped into that PR assignment, which to me seemed a little bit crazy, what it was all about, What was the outcome? And most importantly, I think if there's anything you can share as an insider in terms of what the media is seeing with COVID, so can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
So to take a step back, what happened was a former coworker of mine about 20 years ago. I was the head of global PR at a large enterprise software company, and one of my coworkers at the time, literally like I don't know, now I guess we're now talking about a month and a half ago, the beginning of February, reached out and said, "Are you still doing PR?" Well, yeah. Do you still do crisis PR? Yes. What is happening? And he said, "My parents are on board the Diamond Princess." And it had just hit the news that there was a cruise ship docked at Yokohama Harbor in Japan, and that had people who were being quarantined on board. And I was like, wow, okay. What's the assignment? And he said, the assignment is to make enough noise that the US government comes and takes off the Americans and basically brings my parents home,
Oh, wow.
because we do not feel that the quarantine on board this ship is safe. And I tend to agree with them. What we had was passengers who were being restricted to their cabins, and we had crew members who, by the way, were also potentially infected,
Of
who
course.
were delivering meals, delivering anything, medicines, whatever, to the passengers who were in the cabins. Number one, not fair to the crew members. Number two, they were also potentially infected. And, there was very little known about COVID at the time. Actually, when I started the project, it didn't yet have a name.
Wow.
So it was still the coronavirus, or the novel coronavirus. And I think one of the things that was interesting to me about this whole project was the level of interest from the major media around the world. Even though the ship was docked in Yokohama Harbor, even though there were 400 Americans on board, there were over 3,200 people on board overall. You had
Oh, gosh.
yeah, so you had people from all over the world, all different nationalities, and we were immediately on with everybody from, BBC to CNN, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. And it was our feeling that we could make enough noise and get enough attention for what was happening overseas, because as Americans, we sometimes don't pay attention to what's happening overseas.
Yes, true, isn't it?
Yep. And so we got them on everything. I mean, I don't think I've done that much major media in decades. So in a matter of a few weeks, we had enough attention. The US government did send 2 cargo planes retrofitted to bring passengers home, brought home about 300 people. And they were then quarantined at Air Force bases, one in California and one in Texas. So our clients went through almost an entire quarantine in Japan, and then another quarantine here in the US.
Wow. Are
So
they okay now?
they are okay. They did not end up testing positive. They were tested multiple times.
Wow.
And they did not test positive, and they ended up going home, and they are now, like the rest of us, at home in Florida. So
Oh, okay. That's good news. So anything that you learned about how the media is reacting, and what do you personally think about how the media is telling the story now?
it was interesting. At the time, we were all figuring it out together, and there was a very large amount of collaboration, I would say. Everybody would bring to the table, this is what we know, this is what you know. Okay, now we have a little bit of information. We created a storehouse of photos, of video, of every day we were putting out a different statement with, this is what we've heard. We had audio recordings from the ship's captain. And then we would also talk to the reporters, and they would say, we just heard today from the Japanese Ministry of Health, and they're saying, 66 people have tested positive, and how many did you hear? Well, we heard 65. Why is there a different number? So, there was a lot of collaboration that was going on. And I think the media, just like us, was trying to figure it out on the fly
Yeah.
and moving very, very quickly with a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting, right? Because so for me, I was in New York at 9/11, at 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean, at the building. And then I'm here now. Why I'm still in New York, I don't know. But anyway, so whatever. So it's a city that sucks you in. But anyway, so it's interesting that you talked about the global nature of things.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we're all going to take away from this is listening more to what's happening around the world. And I actually think personally, it's great that all the scientists and the doctors from around the world are starting to listen to each other, starting to come together because they have to. And now it's about, at least my perspective on watching everything as an observer. And now it's about how can we embrace other cultures in a way that we can learn from them, right? Like in Japan, so I was watching something the other night where they were talking about how COVID kind of has really been tailing off rather quickly there because of the culture, because they're not, they always practice this social distancing, right? So it's kind of
Having been squished on a bullet train at one point. I don't know about that, but
yeah. Well, anyways, wherever this was in Japan that I was watching, it was actually a really cool episode. But my point is, I think we're learning globally, and all these crises we seem to take away, and we seem to get closer as a race, So I think that's important. And I think it's important personally also in business, I mean, we might all be speakers, but it doesn't mean that we need to compete. And I think that's what Warrior Women in Business, it's why one of the reasons I started, I was like sick and tired of seeing women compete. I think that we need to collaborate.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about collaboration between women. What do you think women can do to collaborate and achieve things in terms of projects? What have you seen at Innovation Women?
Yeah, the collaboration aspect of this is really interesting because I've seen a number of people basically bringing different speakers together. So, we can all go out there and create our little Zoom thing and, do the thing. But when there is a summit and there's a speaker and another speaker and another speaker and another speaker, and everybody's talking about either, the same theme or different aspects of the same story, it develops a weight. It develops a seriousness, and it gets you more attention. I always look at how I developed Innovation Nights. Innovation Nights, I call it crowd promoting. And what we've done there is we bring together 10 companies every month, and together they create an event. And there's voting on our website, and all of the companies are running around telling their friends, go vote for me, go vote for me, go vote for me. But what they're really doing is they're promoting the event as a whole. And while my best friend might not be a potential good customer for me, they could be a customer for one of the other 9 products.
Right.
So, if each company brings 10 people to a live event, or brings 10 people to a website, together there's 100 people on the website. And it's
That's
like, all right, so, if you think about how we can work together, how we can create online summits, how we can create online events as a group, it gets much more interesting. We can all have our own little speaker websites, but Innovation Women has 1,700 women speakers on it. And so then it becomes a source, a place that people go to find female speakers. And it might not be your turn today, but it's going to be your turn tomorrow or the day after.
I love it. I mean, so when I did the BRANDYOU, that was the intention, to bring speakers, all different, even though the subject is branding, it's such a huge subject in itself.
Yes.
And I'm one person. And I always say that I'm always looking for other women, always, to connect with and grow, whether it supports my business, your business. At the end, who cares? We're strengthening women. We're strengthening our businesses. We're learning from each other. And so, with BRANDYOU, I think, I don't know how many speakers I had, maybe 10. I can't remember the last one, but, I'm looking to kind of broaden that. So, I think that that is super important that we think about that collaboration, the broadening. I want to ask you a question that I hadn't really prepared, but just came to me. So as a speaker, and I'm in your bureau, and a lot of my female speakers, I want them all go to Bobby. But so, as a speaker, I had my former assistant. Oh my God. I mean, I don't even know how many speaker bureaus I've talked to. It's ridiculous. Some of them are just impossible. They want like Hillary Clinton, so it's like, not me, not yet. But so for the speakers out there, can you talk about the different speaker bureaus, how yours is different, what you bring to the table?
I mean, we're not like a traditional speakers bureau. So a traditional speakers bureau, number one, they only want speakers who get paid to speak. They don't want people who are speaking primarily for visibility for themselves and their companies. So there are a lot of speakers who are looking at speaking as a way to grow their career, or they're looking at speaking as a way to drive leads and connect with potential customers. So yes, it'd be lovely to get paid. I think we'd all love to get paid to speak. But if you're going to speak at an industry conference or event, you're likely not going to get paid. The way the event manager looks at it as, I just assembled a crowd full of your potential customers. You want me to pay you too? So those types of speaking opportunities are not going to ever be of interest to a traditional speakers bureau. They only want they only want the speaking opportunities where a speaker gets paid. And on the other side, they only want the speakers who are already getting paid.
Right.
And so, if you're already getting paid to speak and you've got a nice steady income coming in from getting speaking engagements, well, then do you need a traditional speakers bureau? Because you're already getting paid. But an event, a conference organizer, 50% of conference organizers have zero budget for speakers. It's just not even in their business model.
Wow, that's an important stat to know.
Yeah. And 42%, okay, this is on top of the 50%, only pay some speakers. They have money for keynotes, or they might have some travel money, or they might have some money for maybe a featured speaker, but they're not going to pay everybody. And they have a small amount of money just for, the name brand, as you said, the Hillary Clintons, that paid $250,000.
Right.
And an event and a traditional speakers bureau makes money off a percentage of the speaker fee. So they're going to get 20, 30, 40% of your speaker fee. And for that, they are doing things like they're scheduling, they're doing all of the work around the negotiations, but mostly they have a book of speakers. They attract people who do pay speakers, and those types of opportunities are the only thing they do. They are not doing all of these industry conferences that are not paying anybody. Right. And they're not doing like all of these opportunities that could get you in front of potential customers if that's what you're doing. That's why you're doing speaking engagements. I don't know if you know it, but there are 500,000 meetups that happen every single month. Like, okay, maybe not right now, but half 500,000 meetups. Oh my God, those are great opportunities.
It's an interesting time for Meetup. I just have to interject just half of a second. So Meetup, yes, I run a few meetups, and meetups are fantastic, but Meetup, was owned by WeWork, and they just sold it off.
They basically pulled them out. Yeah.
They threw them out. So I saw that, and I'm following that like crazy because I think that's changing and what's changing now. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
it's important.
Yeah.
And Meetup, is an incredible organization, and there are tools like that, Meetup, Eventbrite, that have made it possible for non-professional event managers to run events, to sell tickets, to create a community. And those communities need entertainment. They need content. Where are they looking? They're looking at speakers, but they are never, ever going to go to a traditional speakers bureau to get that.
That's right. And I got to say, just a little bit about my clients and what I do as a speaker, because it might help some of the other speakers out there. So, although I'm a keynote speaker, most of my work as a speaker is as a trainer. So I've been a trainer for 15 years. And so when I look at speaking engagements, I look at them in a few different ways. And I also teach my clients about this because they think, well, I'm going to make $20,000 for this. And I'm like, well,
Maybe not.
I mean, and it doesn't even matter. I've written 3 books. My books make 5 cents. I don't even care about that. And I tell them, don't worry about that, because like you said, they need to be thinking bigger. Okay, you're a speaker. Maybe you don't have a brand yet and you're not in a traditional speaker bureau, but there's lots of ways you can use it to make money. Meaning, do you have a presentation that is a workshop? Because that has more value. I've definitely seen that as a trainer. Are there things like we're talking about right now that you could use as online training that you could run as like a telecourse or something, these are certainly ways to think about it. The other way is, I'm a speaker for all these member associations. They might pay me whatever, $500. I don't care, just to get there. And then I get to go to a new city, which I'm excited about. It's always fun for me. But those folks, if you're intentional about your audience and your audience that has the highest value, you might just take that $500 knowing you're going to get in front of 20 CEOs. So that's the way I roll. And I've been running my business for 15 years, so I do kind of know what I'm talking about. But these are ways that you can think about these opportunities, like Bobby's saying here, as opposed to, it's not going to be a home run. We wish it was a home run. Then all we would do is speak and do nothing else, and it would be great. But you have to be creative and flexible. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that for some of your speakers.
Yeah, I actually usually ask people the question, are you a speaker or are you a consultant or are you a facilitator? Are you a trainer? Because you might actually make more money as one of those other titles than you would as a speaker, because people often don't have budget for speaker, but oh yeah, we got a ton of budget for education.
I know.
Like,
right.
oh, if you're a trainer, oh yeah, you're going to make a whole bunch more money. Yeah.
So,
it's like,
that's a big question I actually get from my speaker. And I also work with a whole bunch of authors, which is a whole other thing, that they continually ask. They want to know who's the right title for them to focus on. And so can you talk about the difference between a meeting planner, somebody at corporate that's in education and training, like the types of titles you deal with and what people should know?
Yeah, I mean, we generally call people event planners or event managers as a catch-all. And the catch-all could be including anything from corporate management to somebody who is running an ERG or an employee resource group. And the employee resource group people, it's funny. It's like they've got a whole extra job that they're doing. And part of that extra job is to every month provide enrichment for the employees. They might be off in HR, they might be in sales, and all of a sudden, they're responsible for planning a meeting for, all of the women in tech in their group or all of the finance group or, whatever that employee resource group is focused around. And so, this is not something that is easy for them because it's not their day in, day out job. They're doing an extra whole job. So the easier we can make it for them to find speakers, to find trainers, to, put together a program where they have people. Last year at the Mass Conference for Women, I was talking to one woman and she's like, yeah, every year we come to the Mass Conference for Women and we go back to the office and we say, how can we keep this great feeling going? Well, we're going to get our women in tech group together and we're going to meet. And she goes, usually we meet 2 or 3 times and then we forget about it. And so next year when we start it up again, and she said, oh, Innovation Women makes it so easy for me to book a speaker, have them come in, have them do a program. She's like, I can see this as making it easy for me to continue the program that we kind of run out of steam on every year.
Oh, I love it. Because one thing that bothers me as a trainer, most of my training is to executive groups. So I do social media strategies for executive groups, primarily B2B because my background's IBM. But anyway, but the thing that bothers me as a trainer and something that I've been trying to resolve in my own way is, you know, you go in and they say, well, it's always the same thing with these huge companies, right? And they're generally in finance. Oh, well, we have a social media initiative, you know, and it's once a year and we're going to have you come in and you're going to train all our executives. And then, you know, I do a 3-step process, pre-strategy, training, and then follow-up and assessment, right? But they never really take advantage of the follow-up and assessment.
Right.
And they also then don't continue like the training and speaking. So do you work with event planners inside of corporate to help them to create programs, or is it more reactive?
Yeah, I mean, we work with people inside organizations who are putting together programs and or speaker series. So, you know, yes, a lot of times it's the ERGs, but it might also be HR where they're trying to get people trained. A lot of times we're working with the public relations people or the marketing people or the sales people. So there are a bunch of different groups inside organizations that are looking for speakers. They're looking for a series, but there's also like so many other different groups. For example, universities.
Oh,
You know, you start looking at the speaker series they have there. You know, there's a big and vast difference between a sponsored speaker series at a university, the speaker series that is run by, say, the organization of student events, or I'm going to be a professor and I'm going to have a guest lecturer come into my classroom.
right.
Yeah, so very, very different in terms of who gets paid and who doesn't get paid. A sponsored speaker series inside a corporation is probably bringing in speakers who get paid, whereas the professor and the guest lecturer, yeah, it's the buddy and they're not going to be charging you anything. And maybe they're, you know, taking you out to lunch.
Yep. That's certainly true. I like that you touched on universities. So I think that's I've done a lot, you know, quite a bit of speaking at universities, and it's generally part of some, again, initiative, right? So how can speakers tap, like, how can they, because if they're utilizing you as their bureau, what can they do to prepare their, I don't know, their content or them as a speaker for the, because the university track, I think is I do both, but some folks, some of my clients only focus on universities and some only focus on corporate. So if you're corporate and you say, hey, you know what, I want to teach at a university or I want to speak there, what are some tips that you can give those speakers?
I mean, frankly, a lot of times it's find a way to speak at a particular university or college and make sure that that example gets into your one sheet, you know, or gets into your sales
Easy.
item. It's like, oh, I spoke at Harvard. Boom.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Well,
yeah.
fairly easy.
Yeah. Provide an example. Anytime you want to do something, you've got to find one and provide it as an example.
Yeah, that is true. Well, that's like a case study, right?
Yeah. Event managers are killing me on a daily basis. It's like they look at a speaker profile on our site and they're like, I need to see a video. And I'm like, I know you do. And they
Let's
don't
do one.
actually, yeah, well, they don't care really actually how much of a video it is. They just want to see the speaker in action. You don't have to have, for these conferences and events, you don't have to have the fancy sizzle reel. You just have to have a presentation that you have given that they can watch, that you're giving your presentation. Most of the time, they just want to make sure that you're not going to come in and try and sell something from the stage.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a very important tip for speakers, because there might be some folks on here that are aspiring speakers. And I can tell you right now, when I present a speaker that's a client or I speak, I mean, the first thing I say, no selling, you know, just that's important for you to know, you know, that you are there to educate, right?
Well, and there are different types of speakers. There are people who are what we call direct sellers, and that is actually a particular kind of event and a particular kind of speakers. There are whole conferences which are one after another of people who are selling their book, who are selling their workshop, who are selling their methodology.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, every single one of them is selling something, and the organizers have put together an audience where the audience is there to buy the thing, whatever
Right.
the
That's
things
also a
are.
really good point. I forgot about all those
Yeah.
gazillions of like, that's actually a great point. And also that's an interesting point for people that are, there might be speakers that are better at naturally selling. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about speakers that can become spokespeople. That's another thing. That's another job, right? It's another career path that a speaker can go down, is speaking on behalf of other companies. Have you
Yeah.
seen that?
Yeah, I have actually a friend of mine who was a spokesperson for the travel industry. And she had a business where she focused on family travel, and she was often hired by different companies to be a spokesperson. And she had a business where she would appear on, say, the Today Show or Good Morning America, and she would bring in a whole bunch of different travel products. And, that was her business. And she had credibility for other reasons. So she had a whole family travel website, and that was her business.
Yeah, I love it. So let's switch a little bit because it's almost 5. I just want to talk. That's okay, Bobby. I love talking to you. I love talking to you. So, and we're going to talk a lot more when we have our event. So, just so everybody knows, Bobby and I are planning an event at the People's Improv Theater. Right now, you're going to see the materials change again from April 27th to May 25th. Hopefully, God willing, right? Everybody go like this. It's going to stay that date. But, one thing that we're going to do at the People's Improv Theater, besides have a ton of fun, is, Bobby's going to talk about some tips for speakers. And I know that I have an audience that is very interested in just learning. A lot of them just want to learn the basics of presentation skills. I laugh, but I know it's because I love being on stage. So I'm like, whatever. But so, presentation skills and utilizing, and this is where, I'm a LinkedIn trainer, like my LinkedIn universe wants to know this question, is a lot of them just want to be able to speak, to present themselves as their brand, right? So what, before we get to May 25th, and God willing, we're going to get there, just a tip you want to share with those out there that are like, small business owners, or maybe even students that need to present, just a tip on presenting yourself as the basics of speaking.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I usually recommend people do is think about your foundation. And, what kind of credibility have you created for yourself as you look to present yourself as an expert on a topic? So, do you have a blog? Do you have a website? Do you have a podcast? Are you writing articles for Forbes or putting things on LinkedIn? You need to be able to come into these types of opportunities saying, I am an expert, and here is the evidence that I am an expert. So, think about what you have created, and right now is a great time to work on your foundation, whether it's your book, your blog, your podcast, your articles, whatever it is. You need to be thinking about how you are creating a foundation of expertise that people look at and go, oh, I need to think about calling Bobby because she's an expert on robotics. And so she is going to be the person we immediately call if we're putting together a panel on that topic. And I'm not an expert on robotics. So
I was going to say, Bobby, where's the robot?
well, this is an example.
No, I know, I hear you. So maybe you want to become an expert on robotics.
I like
robotics. So one thing I would add to that, I think it's perfect. I just add one thing to it because, I deal a lot with like the details of personal branding.
Yeah.
Think about your skills that support those things. So
absolutely.
Peel it back a little bit. Look at the skills, because the skills are the things that when you are that expert and you are presenting, you're going to want to, as you grow your speaker career, in my opinion, I love when people throw tough questions at me. I'm like, bring it on, because that's when you get better as a speaker and at least as a trainer, in my opinion. So those skills, identify what those skills are, and then embrace them and hone them. And like Bobby was saying, this is a great time to further develop those skills as well. So
Yeah.
I think
you need something, you need to be presenting the evidence that you are an expert in a topic. You know, I can't go off and say I'm an expert in robotics. There's no evidence or expertise to support that.
I love that. So let's talk about, you are similar to me in that you are a female entrepreneur and a leader and a business owner, and it's a lot, So what are some of your secrets for some of your own personal success that you want to share?
It's funny. I kind of have the whole family business thing here going, but I'm lucky in that my husband stayed home with the kids and gave me a lot of flexibility in terms of building my businesses. So, marry well.
Find a good guy.
Find a good partner, whatever that is,
Yeah.
because you do end up spending a lot of time on your businesses.
Oof.
And I always tell people that you become an entrepreneur because you like that flexibility. You can work any 100 hours a week you want to.
Bobby, that's going to be, so when we have our event, I'm definitely going to have a t-shirt that has that and a bumper sticker. We're going to have you sign because it's true. It's like, you could work. People are always like, how do you go to, cause I play hockey. How do you go to hockey in the middle of the day? I'm like, well, I work another 100 hours beyond this 1 hour at the rink, which is closed right now. But anyway, so another question that I ask my warrior women in business is about values. I think the values are really important. They're extremely important. To be an entrepreneur, you got to have some strong values. So let's say 1 or 2 values that you really believe in that have helped you through your career. What are some things that you buy?
Brad Feld actually has a way of talking about this, and it's called the give first. You do things for the good of the community and the good of others, and karmic, comes back around. You build up points and you build up goodwill in the community, and you benefit from that later on.
I love that. What was that movie with the dollar bill, the $20 bill? Did you see this? It was years ago. So there's a movie, I can't remember the name, but it's about a $20 bill. It's basically a movie about this $20 bill that goes in and out of people's pockets from rich down to the poor, the poorless, the homeless, and it kind of floats around. And it all started with someone giving. And the whole point is, it's the universe and it'll come back to you. So, and that's a point of like letting go and being free. And I think that, I love that that's a value, because that's something for people to think about, especially right now in this crisis, is we have to be that way, right? We kind of have to think that way, and it's a new way of thinking. And I think it's a good way of thinking. So, what advice would you give, aspiring speakers, aspiring event planners, in terms of some things that they can start to do to build their businesses? Just a couple of pieces of advice.
Yeah, I think practice. The more that you get out there, the more that you speak, even if it's to 2 people, 4 people, 5 people, small groups. Right now, those are the best kind of groups. But the more you practice, the better off you get. When I started Innovation Nights, it was 11 years ago, and I was not the most comfortable of public speakers. I think that first night 11 years ago, I sweated through my clothes. Like, if you've ever seen Albert Brooks in broadcast news,
Yes,
it's like, bring a bigger towel, and they're like patting him down. It was like, that was me that night. It was just this automatic, like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm going to be speaking. And the more you practice, the more you get comfortable with it, the better off you are. And so just practice. That's the big thing. Practice.
I love that, because as a speaker and as a musician, I'm constantly practicing. And one thing in both, they're so related. As a singer and a speaker, what I do is very related. People are like, how do you do all these things? I'm like, they're all the same.
Same thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing. I'm just using my mouth and I'm talking. But one thing that I do quite a bit is I listen back. And I think for speakers, it's really important. I listen to some of my former speeches at the Javits Center, which is a nightmare to speak at because you have competing noise and it's a nightmare. But I go and listen to and watch myself in those old keynotes that I did. And I look at myself now and I see such a difference because I've constantly watched myself. And it's not about being critical. It's about practicing. So I think.
Or watch other people. Go to school on really great speakers. I mean, my God, we're so lucky we have the TED Talks and everything now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, you can watch some of the best speakers in the world.
Yeah.
We have access like we've never had it before, but also watching the evening news and seeing how interviews happen and things like that. Just go to school on other people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point. Journalism, broadcasting, all of that, and then making it your own, you know. Okay, so before we go into, we're going to go into a Q&A soon on Facebook Live, which Molly is handling over there.
Hey, Molly.
What's the best one way for people to get in touch with you?
It's funny. I'm still a little bit of a Twitter fiend, so you can follow me on Twitter, Women in O or Bobby C. But I'm easy to find, you Google me and up I come.
Okay, cool. So, so it's a little bit past 5. I want to get into Q&A, but before we get into Q&A, I want to again just let everybody know that Bobby and I are going to be running an event. It's called Warrior Women in Business Mini BRANDYOU with our co-host Innovation Women, which we're very excited about here in New York City. If you're in Boston, please, it's a quick train ride. I've done it 1,500 times. I'm actually down to 3 hours and 45 minutes as a drive. Pretty good.
Nice.
So if anybody needs to know how to get between Boston and New York fast, I've done it like 300 times. So we're neighbors. And so we're planning this event, and the event is going to be all the Warrior Women in Business mini events include education as well as entertainment. So you're going to get, we're doing it at the People's Improv Theater. You're going to get a taste of improv. You're going to hear some music. We might have a reading from a one-woman act, a play. And then there's a lot of networking, a beautiful bar. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's all going to be posted on Warrior Women in Business. So just to let you know, May 25th, we're hoping. So with that being said, Molly, if you want to go ahead and share any questions coming from the audience in the chat window with Bobby, that would be great.
Okay. I will also say that I'm super excited about the whole aspect of improv, because it's something that I usually recommend to speakers. They're all like, how do I get better? I'm like, you know what? Take an improv class.
Oh.
And it's just, like everybody's like, oh, let's do the whole, what's that group? Toastmasters. They're like, what do you think about Toastmasters? I was like, Toastmasters is great, but improv class, yeah.
That's a whole nother deal.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that we got on a little bit late today, so I don't know if we're going to have any live questions, which is fine. So if we don't have any more, questions. Again, Bobby, I want to thank you so much for being on. Yeah, I can't wait to see you and give you a
live
hug, not a handshake.
Elbow bump.
Let's do this.
Elbow bump.
Let's do this. We're doing elbow bumps all day.
Yes.
This is Warrior Women in Business, episode 21. We were live with Bobby Carlton, who is going to be here in New York City. We're hoping May 25 for our joint event. She'll be back on. Super excited. And hopefully you learned a lot today. I actually know that I did as a speaker and event producer from Bobby. So thank you, Bobby. You've been a plethora of knowledge.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Stay safe, please, for all of us. Stay healthy. To all the Warrior Women in Business fans, to all the Innovation Women fans, please stay safe, stay healthy so we can see you again. And thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.